everybody, Fiber Spider back again in the kitchen with another tasty video for you. Hope all of you are doing really well today. I'm doing spiffy as per usual because we've got another tasty treat in store. Today we are going to be making some super delicious and oh so easy sugar cookies. Now a while back I did do a video on how to make sugar cookies. And for all intents and purposes, I liked the recipe. I did, because it was very, very easy because, well, one of the ingredients, the fat content, was vegetable oil. And it made mixing it up super duper easy, but the end product was, well, a little bit oily. So in my hunting and gathering and so forth, I found a great recipe that uses butter instead, and the difference is notable. It takes a little bit more effort, but it is worth the effort because they are so dang good. Also, on a side note, instead of making the entire batch in one fell swoop, I have also frozen some of the cookie dough into individual little balls, and then I can use them later. So it's really, really convenient as far as, making the whole batch of dough and then parceling out, what I need as I need it. So it's a fabulous thing. We'll get into that later. So that being said, without further ado, let's get started. Hello again. All right, so I have all of my ingredients all set to go as far as I'm aware. And of course, as per usual, the ingredients will be listed in the description box down below. So let's get into it. Now, first thing, we are going to be using 2 sticks of unsalted butter, and you want them to be nice and soft. You don't want them melted, but you do want them soft because it'll make the mixing process that much easier. And also, to go even more easy, what you could do is use a stand mixer. Me, I like to do most all of my cooking and baking by hand, if I can. So I'm going to be going in manually. So it will take me a little bit longer, but ultimately a little less to clean up. All right, speaking of cleaning up, I need to wash my little hands for just a second. There we go. Okay. Now, to our sticks of butter, which is 1 cup, going to be adding some sugar, regular white sugar. For this recipe, we are not going to be using any brown sugar, unlike the chocolate chip cookies that we did a bit ago. So as far as the white sugar, we need 1.5 cups. Now this is a 1/2 cup, so I'm going to be using 3 of these, and then we're going to more or less cream the sugar and the butter together. So 1/2, 1 cup, 1.5 cups. And that's it as far as the sugar. Now, you could conceivably take the balls of dough and then roll them around in sugar. However, I really have found that with this recipe, it's totally not necessary. It's optional. You don't have to, and they still taste absolutely fabulous. Okay, now I'm going to give these a good mix. Now all I did was leave my butter out on the counter. However, this time of year, it takes a lot longer for the butter to get nice and soft, let me tell you. Now, I suppose what you could do is give them a very, very brief nuke in the microwave. I'm talking like maybe 10-15 seconds, something like that, to get them nice and soft, but you don't want it melted. And I am not going for perfection here or complete homogeny. No, I just break up the butter, mix it up a bit, and then we'll be adding some more of our wet ingredients. Now, I'm sure that Gordon Ramsay would look at this and be like, that is not creamed. He's right. But guess what? I have done this recipe a bunch of times, and I have had absolutely no issue, nor any complaints. Also, in addition, I do have my oven preheating to 375, just in case you're curious. Come on. Just give it a little bit more of a mix, and then I think we'll be good to go. But we are more or less there for what we need. Okay, I think we're good. So, with the 1 cup of butter, the 1.5 cups of sugar, we're going to add 1 egg, which I've already cracked. And, you know what, I'm going to wait on the vanilla for just a second, because I just want to use the 1 spoon. So I'm going to mix this in and try to get this nice and homogeneous. Also, mixing in the egg does help bring the sugar and the butter together into a nicer consistency, I must say. There, lovely. Okay, so I still have the vanilla to go. However, before we go into that, we're going to work on our dry ingredients and go from there. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so now in a separate bowl, I'm going to work my dry ingredients. Nothing fancy or schmancy, but I find that for these recipes, it's good to mix the wet in one bowl, the dry in another one, and then incorporate the two together. So, for the flour, I'm using regular all-purpose flour, 2 3/4 cups of flour. Whoop. That's 1. And a little smidge on the counter there. Okay, and that's 2. And 3/4 cup here. There we go. Okay. And to this, our dry ingredients, I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking soda. And this is a 1/2 teaspoon, so I'm going to use 2 of these to make 1 teaspoon. That's 1/2. And the other 1/2. Okay, so that's 1 teaspoon, and then we need 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And the reason why I like to do it this way is because it's, again, less for me to clean up. Okay, so half a teaspoon of baking powder. And then, my oven has preheated. Okay, and then just going to give this a quick mix. Interestingly enough, for this recipe, there's no salt. Usually there is a pinch of salt here or there, but no, not with these. Okay, so that is it as far as the dry ingredients go. Now, while I've got this spoon out, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. There we go. And that way, for all that, I just used 1 little half teaspoon. Makes my life easier. Okay, so just going to mix this together real quick, then add our dry ingredients to the wet, and that is actually it. That's all there is to it. It's that simple. Okay, the vanilla is nicely mixed in. Now for the dry ingredients. And then make this nice and homogeneous. Whoop. Okay, I got flour everywhere. Oh, what a little bit of flour crazy. I'm being a little bit messy today, what can I say? I'm trying not to be. Alright, and then when this is all mixed together, and then we can scoop this out onto some parchment paper laden cookie sheets and then bake them. It's really that easy. And like I was saying before, you don't have to bake all of them in one go. Quite often what I'll do is I'll make 2 or 3 dozen or so, and then I'll just freeze the rest and then deal with them later. Now with freezing them, what I like to do is after I'm done baking, I'll cool down the cookie sheet with the parchment paper still on it, and then ball up my dough, okay, and then put that in the freezer for a couple of hours or so until the dough has gotten nice and frozen and cold and not sticky anymore. And then I take those dough balls, pop them into Ziploc bags, usually, in groups of a dozen or so. And then I just bake them as I want to. Now, what I would strongly suggest, though, is defrost them first before baking them, and then you'll be good to go. As long as you have, the heads up of when you're going to want them, then it's really not a problem whatsoever. Okay, now I'm going to go in with my hands, actually, to make sure that this is fully incorporated. And yes, my hands are clean. But I really like to make sure. Because there do seem to be a couple of dry spots. But for the most part, it seems to be just fine. Just giving it a nice mix. And as long as the dough can hold together, you're good to go. think we're good. All right. Okay, so onwards to the next step. Let me get my pans ready, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm gonna get my pans ready. What I always like to do, a bit of parchment paper, and give it the old crinkle crinkle. Roll it out again. And that is my foolproof way of making sure that the parchment paper doesn't keep rolling in on itself. You know, makes it so much easier. Also really good if you're using like a casserole dish, a brownie pan, that sort of a thing. Makes it so much easier. Okay, onwards to the balling. Now I got this little baller here, and I would say it is about a tablespoon or so. If you don't have one of these, it's totally okay. However, if you want your dough balls to be approximately the same size, this is a great way for that uniformity, and also it's just super duper easy. I love this thing. And so just going to plop these out. And I like to do about 3 rows of 4 on each sheet. Now they do flatten out, but not pancake thin, you know, so you don't have to worry about putting them in the refrigerator first to chill the dough. Nope, I've never had that issue with this particular recipe, so you can just go directly from mixing to baking. Nice and simple like that. Also, of course, at this time, what you could quite conceivably do is you could take these little balls of dough, roll them around in some sugar, and then put them onto your cookie sheet. Now, like I said, it is a strictly optional step. You really don't have to. With this recipe, I haven't, and I still love them. So I would say forego the extra sugar. And all there is left is just baking these little guys. Now, like I said, also, I already preheated my oven to 375. That's all set to go. And we're going to bake them for about 12 minutes. Now, of course, oven temperatures may vary, so the timing may vary on your oven, but what I found for me, 375 for about 12 minutes works perfectly. So I'm going to pop them on in and set my timer. Okay. And 12 minutes, good to go. So I'm going to continue on by getting my next sheet ready, and then I will rotate them out, until either I run out of dough or I feel like, I've made enough, and then I'll just freeze the rest. So that being said, I will see you in about 12 minutes or so. All right, I'll see you in a bit. All right, so my first batch is just about done. Let's get them out of the oven and see them in their glory. Oh, they look so scrummy. Oh, they're gorgeous. They got the little crinkly bits and everything. And yes, they did flatten out, but they are not so thin that they are like paper. No. So absolutely no problem with going directly from mixing to doing the balls of dough. No problem with that whatsoever, and they're just a little bit golden brown on top, just the way that I like them. All right, so now I'm going to do my next batch and then go from there. All right, and then of course the taste test. So I will see you in just a moment. I'll be right back. Okay, so now of course it is time for my favorite part of these videos, the tasting. And I already know that they're going to be fabulous, but I like to share my joy with you. And I decided, after all, to bake the entire batch. And for the record, it was about 3.5 dozen. Now, of course, results may vary depending upon the size of your little balls of dough. So that gives you an idea as far as the yield goes. But now, these little guys are staring at me, so I have to sacrifice one for science. So they do, as I said, they do get thinner and they flatten out, but they're not ridiculously flat. So you don't have to worry about chilling the dough or anything. So bon appetit. A little bit crispy on the exterior, nice and soft and chewy on the interior, not raw, but chewy. Honestly, as much as I liked the ease of the previous recipe using the vegetable oil, this is so much better. It's way better. It's a little bit more work, a little bit more effort, but the results are way better. Okay, so I strongly suggest, if you have used that other recipe, go with this one, definitely. And also, as I was stating earlier, that yes, you could roll the little balls of dough around in some sugar to give the exterior a bit more of a, sweet and crispy texture. It's not needed. These are perfect the way they are. Perhaps if there was less sugar in the actual recipe, you might want to do that, but they're fine, seriously. Another thing that crossed my mind, actually, is that these might actually be really good with perhaps some nuts mixed in. I'm thinking maybe some pecans. That might be nice. Chocolate chips, I think, would be overkill, though. I don't really think that they would need chocolate chips, to be quite frank. Perhaps instead of chocolate chips, maybe do a slight drizzle of some melted chocolate. That might be a nice addition, although as far as the sweetness goes, they're perfectly fine. They really don't need more. They're great where they are. They are great where they are at. I'm so tongue-tied today. I'm sorry. At any rate, I hope you guys liked the video, and if you did, please give a little thumbs up button down below, because you know that I appreciate your appreciation, and I just love showing you guys all these different recipes. To me, there's something quite magical about making something from nothing, and especially if you're making something from scratch. It's just, there's something just so gratifying about it, and I absolutely love doing it. And I plan on doing some more recipes. I have a couple of them lined up, but since we are approaching the baking season, I do plan on doing more. And if you have any suggestions, perhaps lean me into a certain direction, whether it is a sweet or a savory, something more for an entree or a dessert, let me know, and perhaps we can make that happen. Yeah. So listen, again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it, and you know what to do until next time, right? I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay making fun, fabulous, tasty treats in the kitchen for yourself, for your friends, your family, your loved ones, all that good stuff. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.